Baltimore Ravens select Hayden Hurst.
And all of a sudden, boom, my phone rings and Ozzie Newsome's on the other line. It's like, man, this is really happening.
Once they showed it on the television and Hayden called the four of us together, and we had a wonderful embrace because we were thrilled for it. Because a lot of the emotion and anxiety and hard work that he put in came through in all that wonderful call.
Shortly after the draft, he said, Mom and Dad, I want you guys to retire. I said, no, not part of it. He goes, no. He says, I want to have a foundation for suicide prevention, and I want you guys to run it for me.
He goes, Mom, I want to start a foundation, and I want to focus on young people because I want young people to learn the tools and the foundation for handling anxiety and learning from it.
Hey, I got a lot of respect for what you did. Came out and talked about. Me and my mom have a foundation about suicide prevention. Yeah. Respect the hell out of you for talking about it, man. Collab one day. Absolutely.
When you are the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys and you're scrutinized so much already, and you come out and you talk about, hey, I was feeling this way with depression. You know, I suffered loss in my family with suicide. What a brave thing to come out and talk about. And then for the kind of the backlash that he got, I thought was just completely outrageous.
When Hayden has his cleats for a cause at December 6th game, he's not only representing his foundation, he's representing Dak Prescott and Solomon Thomas, because that's what it's all about, is getting the message out and letting people feel comfortable talking about their feelings.
I think my message would be, don't make permanent decisions on temporary feelings. That there are resources out there to help you. You are loved, you are wanted, you are appreciated, you are put on this earth for a reason.
We can do something to help you out. Don't hide it. You got to be strong. Come forward with it. Let us know what's going on.
Don't think that you are the only one out there having these feelings or thoughts, and go to someone.
Keep fighting. Keep going. Because as bad as dark as it gets, I promise you, there is someone out there who cares and loves you and wants to see you succeed at whatever you do. It doesn't have to be professional sports. You know, I promise you, there's somebody out there in your life that loves you and that will support you and will help you get out of that situation.
Hey students, this is Chris Hubbard from the Cleveland Browns. Welcome you all to the NFL draft event, Building Mental Resilience. With the draft being this week, being hosted in Cleveland, we had to kick off this event by thanking you all. Make sure to listen close to all the panelists and take away the lesson with all the help and keeping a strong mind. Enjoy the event. Go Browns. Any student that is struggling with mental health, I advise you to really talk to someone, talk to your parents, let them know what's going on with you. Don't be afraid. I mean, because you're not alone. I know for me, I was able to talk to my mother and be able to vent to her and be able to let her know what's going on with me when I had depression, dealing with depression and dealing with anxiety, things that bothered me. Those are some of the things that are people that got me through and kind of helped me out. And even when talking to my therapist, that kind of helped me out as well. So don't be afraid to be able to open up and be able to talk, because mental health is so serious that it just can kind of override and overrule you in a sense. And you don't want that to happen to you. So you want to be able to take care of that problem, take care of the solution, and be able to get the necessary help that you need. And don't be afraid. I mean, like I said before, you're not alone. I'm here. Just be able to talk to someone.
I don't think we could say it any better than Chris Hubbard of the Cleveland Browns already did. What great words to welcome us into the 2021 NFL Draft Character Playbook event on building mental resiliency. And Chris Hubbard was the perfect person to welcome us in as a member of the Cleveland Browns. We know that all eyes are on Cleveland this week because that is the site of NFL Draft, and it starts on Thursday. My name is Jen Mueller, and I'm so excited to join this conversation today, even more than I'm excited to see who gets taken in the first round of the NFL Draft. Now, I bet all of you watching out there have favorite football players. I work for the Seattle Seahawks on their radio broadcast. I have lots of favorite players inside that locker room. And when we watch our favorite players, what we see is how fast they run and how hard they hit and the amazing highlight plays that they put together. What we don't see is the mental side of the game, that mental wellness, the mental resiliency that you saw Hayden Hurst and Chris Hubbard talk about. And here's the really cool thing. I know that I will never be as strong as fast as the guests that are joining us today, but we can all apply some of the same techniques that they use to deal with anxiety, depression, and just being better with mental wellness and resiliency. Now, we're going to talk about what all of that means in just a couple of minutes, but why don't we meet the folks who are going to help us have this conversation today? I can only imagine how loud the crowd would be cheering if we were all in person, but I know that you were cheering in your own individual classroom. So keep those claps and those applause going as we introduce, first of all, Justin Reid. He is a safety for the Houston Texans and a former standout at Stanford University, having been named All-Pac 12 in 2017. He was a third-round pick for the Texans in 2018. Justin, give us a wave.
How's it going, everybody? Happy to be here and share my thoughts and speak to all of you today.
We can't wait to dive into that conversation. Marcus Smith is going to help us out. He is a former NFL linebacker. He spent 3 years with the Eagles, a year with the Washington football team, and some time with the Seattle Seahawks, where we actually talked because he played a key role in a big game when Cliff Averill got hurt. Marcus was a first-round selection of the Eagles in 2014. Marcus, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how you guys doing? I can't wait to be able to instill in some of the things that I've learned along the way. So I'm excited to do that.
I think folks should get their taking devices out because there's going to be a lot of notes that you can take today. And you might notice that we've got a couple others joining the conversation. These students are from Cleveland, Ohio. They are in the middle of all the action this week. They both attend John F. Kennedy High School. Shania Blair is a junior. She's a leader in the classroom with a 4.2 GPA. She is also a leader on the field and the court. She has been the captain in varsity volleyball, varsity basketball, and varsity softball. Holy cow, Shania. On top of that, you hold down a job and you are always encouraging others to be the very best that they can while leading by example on a daily basis. If you want to know what Shania is going to do in the future, well, I don't think there's any doubt she's going to start and finish her college education. Hey, Shania, thanks for taking some time today.
Hi, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
We are so happy to have you and your classmate, Duran Stallings, who is a senior and is active in school, dedicated to his studies. He's currently running track, and you would have seen him on the basketball court before COVID. He is always willing to help. He leads with positivity wherever he goes, and Duran is planning on attending college after he graduates high school this season. Hey, Duran, welcome to the conversation.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, let's level set the conversation just a little bit with Marcus and Justin. I know that there's a lot of things that we could be doing and could be talking about today, but Marcus, why are you excited to be able to talk to the students about this topic today?
I'm so excited just because I dealt with mental health when I was in Seattle, actually, and I had dealings with anxiety and depression, and I had to find ways to be able to talk to someone, and I want to be able to tell them who to talk to and what techniques they can use to be able to get through those and what to look for in those specific emotions. Because some of us, we don't really understand what we may be dealing with if we don't know. So that's why I'm so excited to be on here today, so I can be able to give them some gems on what to look for and how to be able to get through those things.
We're going to help define some of that in just a little bit. Justin, what would you add? Why are you excited to be here?
Yeah, mental health is kind of like a forgotten chapter of growth that people won't usually talk about. For some reason, it's become a taboo topic, and it shouldn't be, because it's one of the most important things that'll help anybody in their growth, mentally, spiritually, physically, and also just really clarify the direction that you want to go in your life. I know when I was growing up, I was one of those people that didn't talk about it. I thought that it was a weakness, and it's totally not that. It takes strength to talk about it, and you have a lot of growth that comes from it. So I just want to share some of my experience with it and pass that along, and hopefully speak a message to somebody in the audience today.
Well, and Shania and Durand are going to demonstrate some of that strength that it takes to talk about it. We have mentioned mental wellness and mental resiliency. Shania, what does that mean to you?
Okay, so my mental, it's all about my thoughts, my behavior, and how I react towards things that I have going on in my life. For example, I work, I go to school, and I play sports, and that's a lot to deal with, especially as a teenager. And basically, I had to learn to adjust to it fast, especially due to COVID. It kind of changed things, and it's very important that I focus on it, and I learned techniques to stay positive at work, at school, on the field, and also help others out.
Durand, what would you add to that? What does mental wellness and mental resiliency mean to you?
Well, what I think it means to me, like, it's kind of like free, like how you did with, like, you kind of like responsible for it. Like, things can go good, things can go bad, but sometimes, you have to control it. That's the thing. Sometimes you can stay sad, but it's okay to stay sad. But, this is not for that long. If you are staying sad, probably just get some help or professional help. Just think about the positivity, just have good days and all of that. And yeah, that's what it's meant to me.
Yeah, I think that is a really good way to put that. And I think that now that we have had some introductions and we know why you are also excited to be part of the conversation, it is time to get to know everybody a little bit better. I've got two questions, and I want all of the students that are out there watching to participate. And feel free to use that chat function. If you've got a question, if you've got a comment, go ahead and put it into the chat. We'll have time to get to just a few, but I want you to know that I'm reading all of them that come in. But we've got a poll question to really get to see who's on which side of things, starting with this one. Darian, I'm going to have you go ahead and launch that poll. Would you rather be chosen first to play dodgeball or kickball? Justin, you go first. Dodgeball or kickball?
Well, since I just actually had a charity event 2 days ago playing dodgeball, I'm going to choose dodgeball. It's a ton of fun. I haven't played since middle school, but it was a blast.
Okay, Durand, would you rather be chosen first to play dodgeball or kickball?
Dodgeball.
Okay, Shania?
I'll have to say kickball.
All right, well then, Marcus, which team are you going to be on?
I'm going to have to go with kickball too.
Okay, good. So we can play a little 2-on-2 here with this. You got dodgeball, you got kickball. We can put together some teams. I would go dodgeball, by the way, just in case anybody is wondering on that one. Yep, I would go dodgeball. And you know what? 71% of you following along in your classroom said the exact same thing. Okay, so next poll question. Here, when you are having a bad day, would you rather talk about it with your friend or be by yourself? Marcus, which would you rather do?
Well, I would try to talk to a friend. If somebody that's close to you, though, talk to a friend. I wouldn't necessarily be by myself, because when you're by yourself, you kind of think more when you're by yourself. You don't really have anyone to express your feelings to.
Justin, how about you? Talk to your friends or be by yourself?
See, I've experienced both sides of this. You talk to me in my childhood growing up, I would 100% tell you I would rather be by myself. I wouldn't rather show my feelings. But talking about that growth that I mentioned earlier, now it's so much healthier to have somebody that you can talk to and have an outlet to speak to somebody about. So 100%, I have one very special person that I can be open about and tell anything to. So talk to your friends.
Shania and Duran, I'm going to have you do this in a show of hands. Would you rather be by yourself? Raise your hand. Or would you rather talk to your friends? Raise your hand if you're having a bad day. Okay. Shania, okay, so both of you want to talk to your friends. And you know what? You can put your hands down. You know, sometimes we call that being introverted versus extroverted. And so if you're an extrovert, you like to talk out your feelings. It's one of the ways that you process. That's how I process through things. It's how I feel better. And sometimes if you're introverted, you need to get by yourself and just spend a few minutes on your own so that then you can deal with everything that is happening. It looks like we've got a lot of extroverts, 57% of you. So more than half say that you would like to talk with your friends when you're having a bad day. And I do think that Justin and Marcus made some great points. You don't want to be dealing with this alone. Justin, you mentioned this before, but why is it important that athletes have the mental resiliency and the mental wellness to deal with everything that happens in their lives?
Yeah, we live in a high stress environment. I mean, a lot of us, especially athletes, part of our identity is our sport, how we perform on any given day, whatever what day of the week that is for you. For us, it's Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. But my feelings for the whole week would be affected by how I performed in last week's game because I just cared that much about it. And sometimes that'll be great. You know, I mean, you have a great game, you win, you're feeling on top of the world. And other days you might have a bad game and you're feeling really down on yourself. But the key is to find balance in between both. You know what I mean? When you win, don't let that spike your emotions too high, but still being grounded. But also when you lose, don't let it take you down too low.
When did you first learn about that concept, Justin?
It's definitely been a work in progress. The biggest milestone that I've learned it from was from this past season. This is the first time I've ever been on a losing team, and it was just honestly in the beginning of it, it was depressing. You know what I mean? It's like I did not like my outlet was always been sports. You know what I mean? If anything was going wrong with my day, my outlet was I'm going to go play with my friends. I'm going to go practice. I'm going to do something outside athletic. And part of me wanted a little bit of that external validation that I was doing something good, right? Because I haven't had the growth inside of me yet to have the amount of internal validation that I didn't need to have those external factors of people hyping me up to make me feel good about myself. So I really just learned to come on my own, validate myself from who I know I am as a person. And that allowed me to kind of even out my feelings regardless on how the performance goes. I mean, but we all still like to win, you know. But it was a big moment of growth this past year.
Well, we're going to ask you for some of the techniques and the strategies that you use through that in just a little bit. Marcus, you mentioned that in Seattle, you really encountered a time of depression and anxiety. What was the moment that you had to ask for help? Whether it was because you were in a funk and you couldn't get out of it, or it was something football related that you just had to reach out and finally say, man, I can't on my own.
Well, honestly, my breaking point was I was actually about to commit suicide within myself. I was actually about to do it. And the funny thing is my wife called me that day. And then I was trying to rush her off the phone. And then her mother-in-law called me and they literally stopped me from doing what I was gonna do. And then I was at a point where I really needed to go get the help and the therapy that I needed because I wanted to change. I wanted something different in that regards. And so once I started to go to therapy and really see that I could really find out who the true Marcus Smith was and pass all of the anxiety, pass all of me being a first round draft pick and everything that Justin has said about us dealing with the ins and outs of the game. And, you know, I was able to see who I really was and I actually got better from it. And it was definitely a long period of growth from that.
Can I ask you, did your wife and your mother-in-law, did they know the situation? Did they call specifically to stop you? Or is it just Coincidence or a God moment that that's what happened?
It was definitely a God moment. It was a moment that, because I was in a place where I wasn't talking to anyone, I wasn't telling anybody, and that's why I'm on this. Want to get out to the kids. Like it's okay to talk. It's okay to tell people your emotions and feel those emotions, because that's what I was not doing at the time, and it was just coincidentally that they called me in the time of need and stopped me from what I was doing. And they didn't say anything either. They were just calling to talk to me regular. And the second time that my mother-in-law called me, that's when I really got scared within myself, because I really felt like God was trying to speak to me to tell me that you should go get help.
Was it hard to ask for help?
Yes, it was definitely hard to ask for help at first, because I believe that in like for men and how we're constructed, we will say that we're okay when we're not. We want to always push through. We want to be in a strong point. We want to be the backbone of our family. So initially we won't ask for help, but being vulnerable is the perfect way to release your emotions and ask for help, because that's really you being courageous, and that's really you being strong.
And what I also hear in what Marcus is saying is you might not know what your friends are going through, but just being a friend and showing up could be doing more than you ever realize. So that friend might feel like they're pulling away from you, and it might not be about you at all. And sometimes it's just about being a good friend back. I see a couple of questions coming into the chat. We're going to get to those in just a little bit. Shania and Durand, you've heard these guys talk a little bit now, and you both have touched on how much is going on in your lives. And I'd be curious, Durand, I'm going to have you start with this. Rank your state of mind right now as you think about the stress of high school, going to college, and everything that's going on in the world. On a scale of 1 to 10, where's your stress at?
I say it's like from okay, from where we are, because I have to because I kind of don't know what I want to do after school. I kind of want to chase my dreams, because we only get like one shot in life. Or I probably would go to college. I did. I was told by some colleges that I may want to go to. Then I am going to get a job as well, so I'm gonna have to think about that as well. And then I'm going to start working on getting a car too.
Yeah. Shania, how about you? Rank that stress level and that anxiety level on a scale of 1 to 10.
Well, to be honest, I'll give it about a 3 or 4, because I learned many techniques to cope with it. And then also my coach gave me some great advice about just taking it one day at a time, try not to put too much stress on myself, and just like I could slowly work my way up to that point until when I get there, but not just try to put it all on me right now and just live in a moment.
I think that is great advice. And I think it's something that we all need to hear from time to time. And we could all use some advice and some techniques. I'm seeing a lot of questions come in the chat where people want to know, how do you handle stress? How do you handle a bad day? What do you do at the end? Justin, I want you to give us a technique that you use in football, and if you just get into a funk at home, to kind of help settle you down a little bit and get back in a good mental state.
Yeah, I'll run by 2 real quick. One of the first things is time away from whatever it is that you're doing. So let's say it's your sport. I think there's a lot of value. And if you get your mind off of it, maybe pick up another hobby for a little bit, just do something else, give it some time to breathe, and then you come back around to it. There's a lot of clarity in that. Like, I don't know if you guys ever done homework, and then like you just can't seem to get it right. You've been at it for hours and hours and hours, and you can't figure out an equation. And then you take a break, you go eat, you go do something, you come back later, and you figure out in 5 minutes, and it's so clear. You know what I mean? It's like, how didn't I see this before? So one of those, that's the first tip that I'd like to say. And then secondly, and I actually learned this from a therapist that I had talked to, was I created what's called an energy pie. And an energy pie is not necessarily how much time you spend on something, it's how much energy you put into it, right? So I segmented out how much energy I wanted to dedicate my life to each phase of my life. So I put, obviously football is a major part of my life. I put about 45% my energy pie is going into football. And I put like another 20% of that is going into family. I put 10% going into social media and web surfing. I put like another 15% going into a hobby that's not sports related, something healthy in case I needed that outlet. I don't really know how much that added up to just now, but you know what I mean?
I'm not doing on this.
Yeah,
I'm not doing math.
add that up to 100%, and you just hold yourself to that. And like I said, it's not necessarily how much time you spend on it, but it's how much energy that you put into that. And when I was able to it helped me manage my emotions better whenever I did that. I didn't get overwhelmed with any particular thing because I had a set amount of energy that I was going to allow myself to put towards it.
Justin, I want to follow up. Marcus, you're on deck with your techniques and strategies, but from DeWitt, Arkansas, this question comes in that's talking about the emotionally challenging part about from college to the NFL in relation to the transition that high school students are going to make, like Durand was just talking about, right? Getting into college. Do you think that that pie that you're talking about there, that energy pie, is a technique that would help with some of those transitions and those emotions?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, going from high school to college is definitely the biggest jump. I feel like in any phase of your life, it's one of the points when you're kind of coming into your own as an adult. I feel like the jump from college to professional isn't nearly as large as the jump from high school to college, but still that same level of focus and clarity that you can create for yourself to where you have, it allows you to make your plan intentional. You have an intentional plan of how you're going to get there, how you're going to, spend time doing your athletic part of it, and then your academic part of it. And it really just calms you down. And have you ever heard that, fast is smooth, or, things like little sayings like that. All of that is true. Whenever you're able to think clearly, think calmly, your stress level is low, everything just becomes more efficient for you.
I love that. Marcus, I want you to add on. What's a technique or a strategy that you use to get that mental wellness back in a good place?
I think for me, one of the strategies that I use is positive self-talk. I learned this from my therapist as well, because a lot of the times when we're like going away from what we're doing and we're getting a lot of stress and anxiety, negative thoughts are flowing through our head a lot of the times. And being able to come back and just tell yourself, hey, I'm okay. This is going to be fine. I'm going to do this. Like things like that. Just continue to talk to yourself, feed yourself positivity. And then as you keep going out the course of your day, you'll start to see a light and feel like, oh, okay, I'm okay. And then another thing was that I actually learned was actually journaling. Journaling is something that when you have a lot of your thoughts in your head, you can put these thoughts down on paper, whatever you're thinking. If it's in that moment, if you got so many things going on, if you're working, if you're in school, or if you are in a sport, whatever you're doing, you can try to put it down on paper and just see what comes out of it. Just put those thoughts on your head. So those are the two things that I would say. And the last thing I want to say is reading too, as well. You could actually read something that you enjoy and something that you can get a kick out of, something that will relax you and make you happy. So something like a book that you can read.
And I'm just going to say this, when you journal, nobody else has to read it and you can throw it away right after because I've been known to do that some mornings after I finish my journaling session.
Right.
Nobody needs to see those things.
Right.
Shania and Durand, you've heard the guys give some techniques and some strategies. I know that you have your own ways that you stay mentally healthy. Shania, what's one thing that you can offer to other students?
Well, I know one thing that worked for me personally is like meditation. I would put on some nice, relaxing, calm music and just relax on myself. And it helps clear my head and all that. So then I could start all over and balance out.
I like that one.
Love it.
There's an app called
I like
Calm
that one
too.
too.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Calm's really good, and 10% happier is really good for that. Yep.
Yeah.
Durand, I know that we hit a lot of things, but I bet you've got something that's helped you that might help other folks.
Yes, there is. There is a lot. I would usually exercise, or if I'm ever feeling sad, just mostly think about stay positive and just keep that negative away from me, or I will like watch a movie that I've been wanting to watch recently, or just go for a run, or just play some video games to get my mind off.
Yeah. Get your mind off whatever it's on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, those are good techniques. And I'm glad that none of you took mine because I have one. And I think this might help. There was a question that came in and it was really a comment that asked if I don't have anybody to talk to and I haven't talked to people in a long time. So I feel really insecure about my communication skills. I think my communication skills are terrible. And that can definitely be a problem when you're trying to ask for help. So I have a technique to help with that. Okay. I'm going to have you all answer this question at the same time. You ready? How are you today?
Great.
I'm doing really well, doing great.
How are you?
Oh, thank you for asking, Durand. I'm awesome because I get to spend time with you. Marcus is the only one who gave me more work. Now, teachers and classrooms, I want you to try this with your students as well. You can go ahead and I'm going to give like 20 seconds. Ask, how are you, and wait for the response. And I bet the answer was pretty close to fine or good or great. And here's what I'm going to say. This is a opening to tell people that you're not fine or good or great. There are things that because we're so used to saying that, and we think that nobody else cares what we actually say. But this is one of the easy ways to ask for help. In fact, last week I was not week. And when somebody asked how I was doing, I actually said, I'm struggling. This is a really tough week. I'm not in a good place. And that was an indication for my friend, a close friend, to say, okay, how can I help with this? You don't need to do this yourself. That's one of the things that I want you to write down and to mark down, because we're going to bring that up in just a minute. And Justin, I want you to be an example. Think of a day where you're not having a good day and somebody asks, how are you? Give me a one sentence response as to what you might say. Mark, have you go, how are you?
Well, I actually might say, I'm good, I'm fine. I'll basically say that I'm good and I'm fine. Like we as men, we a lot of times just say that we're good and we're fine and not actually tell like the whole truth. I'm still working on that today.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going to have you come up with one word that you would say to answer that. I'm going to go to Justin. I'm going to have you come up with one word to say because all of the students are having the same problem, voicing like their true feelings. So I'm going to come back to you in just a second. Justin, if you were trying to tell me that it wasn't a good day and I asked, how are you? What would you say?
I was trying to let people know that it wasn't really a great day.
Yeah.
I was probably say something like, it could be better.
Okay. That's one way to do it. Yep.
It could be better.
Okay, Marcus, do you have a word?
I would say that I
know it's a tough one to start off with.
I'm putting him on the hot seat. I know.
That's a great question.
We can let you.
Because a lot of us would struggle with just coming out and outright saying, you know what I mean, that I'm struggling or I'm having this problem with the day. I know, especially for me, is because you like to uphold a positive thing around you. You like to speak about positivity, and then I don't want the first thing that's coming out of my mouth be something, you know what I mean, that may be negative or what have you. But it is important that you have that person that you can have those real conversations with. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be, Joe Blow who talks to you on the street. But when you have that person that you're truly comfortable and close with, and that person talks to you, then like if I was talking to my therapist or I was talking to my best friend CJ, and CJ would have been the one to ask me that question, I would have been like, bro, CJ, let me tell you about what's been going on. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone else, though, I'll probably give that same, it's fine type of response.
That's a great, great point. Marcus, I don't want you to forget your word, though.
No, I'm gonna say I'm feeling sluggish, or I'm just not having. It's a sluggish day today, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully what the students have heard is a couple of different things. Justin, you bring up a great point. You don't have to tell every single person that you're struggling or having a bad day. This goes back, Justin, to something that you said earlier about having a team around you. Marcus, you said the same thing when you talked about your wife and your mother-in-law. This is an important part of asking for help. We all have our closest teammates, whether they're football players or they're your closest friends and your parents and a trusted teacher. When you have, let's say, 4 or 5 people around you that are your team, it's easier to say, I need help.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
And I'm going to ask this to both Marcus and Justin, and then we're going to get a couple of more questions. Shania and Durand, I'm going to have you go first with questions. This is not, as you can all see, it does not necessarily come out smooth and easy the first time you try to say this, right? Marcus, have you ever gotten good at anything as an athlete by only doing it once?
No, never. Never. Everything is repetition. Anything that you do is repetition, and you have to do it over and over again to get good at it.
And Justin, what would you say about whether it's working with the same person over and over again, like your trainer, your teammates, your therapist, right? About getting comfortable and good at doing something.
Yeah, I think that's the big word, what you said just there, is the comfort about it. It's going to be uncomfortable the first time you do it, especially if it's your first time ever wanting to ask for help. It'll be uncomfortable, but the more you do it, and the more you're able to grow from it, you'll become more comfortable in doing so. You know what I mean? Then, you know what I mean? That's just a healthy transition to just growing up.
Well, and I want to throw this in there before we get to a question from Shania and Durand. If you need somebody to talk to about your mental health, if this has gotten you thinking that you really want somebody to hear what's on your heart and to hear what's going on in your head, there's lots of resources. Rob is going to put a couple into the chat. Your teachers have these resources available to you. There is a crisis text line that you can reach. You text HOME, HOME, there it goes right into the chat, to 741741. So make sure that you copy and paste that. And maybe it's not you, maybe it's a friend who needs to hear that, but please share this message and keep this message in mind. Shania, I'm going to go with you. Do you have a question for either Justin or Marcus?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I just want to say thank you for taking time out your day to talk to us, because I feel like it helps us, because with people that's in a successful spot like you two, also going through the same things that most of us do, it helps us realize that we're not alone and that we all relate in some kind of way, and that there's multiple ways we can get help and reach out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody is going through something. And I mean, even myself, when I was growing up, I was just really good at hiding it. But going through my whole childhood, I was always going through something too. And the moment that I was actually had the strength to actually reach out and ask for help and realize that, hey, I need to talk to somebody about this, was a defining moment in my life, you know? And some people are just better at hiding it than other people, but everyone has something that they're going on with and dealing with their lives. So also remember to just be respectful of that with everybody around you and your peers of what they might be going through too. But I appreciate you, Shania, and you, Durand, for both being on here. You two are great students. I'm looking forward to seeing the big things that you guys do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I would say the same thing Justin said is that we all are going through something, and hiding it is what we're kind of like taught to do without being taught. We just do it because we want to that's what it says to us to push through. But, you know, really pushing through is really, you know, being vulnerable in that state and really speaking up and saying that you have a certain issue, you know, that's okay. And that's really going to help you continue your walk and your journey in life. And so you got to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and everything is going to be fine.
Durand, do you have a specific question for Marcus or Justin?
Yeah, I have a question for both of them. My question is, was your dream ever going to the NFL? I mean, playing for the NFL, or was it just like a random occurrence?
Definitely was, well, I grew up when I was a kid, I played a whole bunch of sports, but it was my dream to be in professional athletics. I didn't know which sport it would be in until I got to about high school, and I chose a direction of football, but it definitely was a dream to do that. And it was a dream, and this came back kind of when we talk about external versus internal validation. You know what I mean? And it was a dream that at first I wanted people to just be proud of me. You know what I mean? I did it because I was good at it, and I thought it was what I was supposed to do. And I love to do it too. But then also, like, I grew into not needing to have other people validate, like, why am I doing this? Like, because everyone hits that point. Like, why am I really doing this? And then it turned into, well, I do it to create a stage to help other people. You know what I mean? Because I want to be able to tell people about the experiences that I went through. And that's really why I love professional athletics too, is for, you know what I mean, the fitness part of it, which you mentioned that you like to do too, but also because it gives a platform for me to talk to the next generation of you guys and hopefully speak to one of you guys. And, you know, you guys are going to be the next engineers and presidents and, you know what I mean, leaders of corporations and things like that. And if I can play a small role in helping you guys be successful, that's really what I find joy in doing.
Yeah, pretty much for me, like I wanted to be in the NFL. NFL was something I always wanted to do since I was 5 years old. But once I actually got to that point, it was, I really quickly felt like that it was bigger than me. It was bigger than just the NFL, me being in the NFL. And it was just like what Justin said, I felt like my purpose was so much bigger than that. Now, lo and behold, I didn't realize my purpose was going to be mental health, but I knew that I had some type of purpose of being on this type of stage, playing this game. And that's ultimately what I'm doing now. And so if you can continue to strive to be at your very best at whatever you want to do, you'll figure out and find your purpose through that.
Very good. I'm going to ask one more question of Marcus and Justin, then I'm going to let those guys go if you have time for just one more question each. Is that okay?
Yep.
Justin, you, okay. All right. So Marcus, this question is put in the chat, and I think that this relates to so many people out there. How has COVID affected your mental state?
I think COVID definitely affected me in a way that I'm always on the go doing stuff, but it forced me to sit down and actually be with myself. And I think that was for all of us. It made us take a step back and really examine what we were doing, how the things were going, and really take a peek into our lives and really deal with those things. And I think that's the way it affected me. It actually allowed me to actually get more therapy, actually be around my family more, actually, get with some family that I haven't seen in a long time. Just, being around your loved ones and being with people that can ultimately help you grow and help you push forward. Because when we're on the go and we're doing so many things, it's hard to do that. So I think COVID for me just really, it affected me in a way at first, like, oh man, I can't do anything, or man, I wish this wasn't happening. But at the same time, I got to really sit with myself and really, spend time on just me and myself. And I think that's important. Self-care is so important with, no matter how old you are, it's important to have self-care and really, feel for yourself, feel those emotions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, it's the exact same thing. It's really just, I think, allowed everything to slow down again, got a chance to focus on yourself, realign my own priorities, the same way the Marcus be able to just align your priorities again on what's really important to us,
Well, Justin, here is your last question. There's been a couple of different variations of this put in the chat. I know that you touched on it, but I'm going to ask you to sum it up as probably one of your key takeaways today. There's a number of people that are asking about how do you deal with losing, or how do you deal with failure? How do you overcome those moments? What advice can you offer for folks trying to figure out how to rebound from disappointments and failures?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. One of the things that I really did, whenever I fail or I lose at a game or something didn't go right, the thing that I used to do I would throw myself completely into it hard, almost at an obsessive level. You know what I mean? In some ways that worked, in some ways it wasn't healthy, because that's the reason why my whole week would be bad if I had a bad game, because I couldn't stop thinking about whatever mistake I made in that game, whatever impact I could have done better. But the biggest takeaway that I've learned was to just, like I said, give it that time to breathe, find another hobby. Not to say that it's not important to you. Sports is one of the most important things in my life, but just find things that also make you happy, that you are more than just a sport that you play. You are more than just a soccer player, a tennis player, a football player, whatever sport that you play. And whatever values you also have, like I enjoy playing chess. I just picked up another hobby. You know what I mean? If I had a really bad game, I would learn from it, you know what I mean? Because that's our job as athletes, to learn from it and get better. But I also wouldn't punish myself for it for the entire week. You know what I mean? You just gotta, what happened has happened, you learn from it, you move on. You know what I mean? Keep on living life.
Marcus, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just say it's really just about how you look at the failure. You can take a loss as a learning lesson. Look at it as a lesson. And all of us, us being in the NFL, you being in your arena, Jen, and where we are, I think that we all went through something to get to where we are. And we've all took some type of learning lesson or loss, however you look at it, and to get where we are. So if you look at it that way, it's like, okay, it's a lesson that I'm going to learn, but eventually this lesson is going to make me better in the long run. And we all, at some point, if you want to call it fail, learn or lose at some point in our life, but ultimately it makes us stronger and better.
I could not agree more. Now I'm going to take Marcus and Justin off the hot seat. Shania and Durand, I am going to put you on the hot seat just a little bit on this, but I want everybody to be doing this with Shania and Durand. We only have a few minutes left, so we're going to do this one last thing with Marcus and Justin. If they need to hop off, then they'll be able to go as we wrap up our time together. Okay, so here's what I would like for all of the teachers and administrators working with your students in classrooms to do. Write down one or two things that you found most impactful about this conversation today. Maybe it was something that you needed to be reminded of. Maybe it was encouragement that you needed to hear from one of the folks on our panel today. But whatever was most impactful, the thing that you are going to take with you, that's what I want you to write down, and I want you to share it with somebody. But Durand and Shania, I'm going to put you on the hot seat and have you share it with everybody. Shania, I see you smile. I know that you've got an answer. What's one of the most impactful things you heard today?
Well, one of the most impactful things was I related to Justin a lot. Like growing up, I was always to myself. Anytime I have a problem, keep it to myself and just let it all build up. And I don't know, it just helped me realize talk to somebody is important and do things that make you happy and stuff like that, that balance you out. I feel like that was probably the most impactful thing that from this whole conversation that sticks with me the most.
Very nice. Durand, how about you?
I say the same thing as Shania said. Like, if I do want to talk to somebody, people around me will sometimes be busy or doing something. So sometimes I'll probably think about the situation, if what I'm going through. Just probably think of it until I can get someone to talk to about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't want this the only time that we have this conversation, right? Shania and Durand, that was a great way to start bigger conversations with your class. Now that you're superstars, when you go back to class after you're done with this, right? You can have bigger conversations with your friends. But we also want to issue a little bit of a challenge here. Justin, you're going to give me the length of time that it's going to take for the attendees to finish this challenge. Okay, so I want you to hear the challenge, then you're going to hear it. Marcus, I'm going to have you either agree or disagree with it. Okay, you ready? Here's what the challenge is. We are going to give you a scorecard to help you have these conversations. That is going to be delivered electronically to your teachers and administrators. There are 5 things that I want to see if you can do to help have these conversations and keep the conversations going. Number 1, here's what it's going to say. Get to know others through asking questions. It's a little bit like asking, would you rather be chosen first to play dodgeball or kickball? Number 2, learn how someone else deals with a bad day. This is showing empathy, and it's opening up the door to figure out if people need to talk or if they don't need to talk. Number 3, come up with an honest answer to the question, how are you? don't pretend you're having a good day if you're not having a good day. That's a way to ask for help. And think about the best way to ask for help. That's number 4 on our scorecard. And number 5, figure out who is on your team. Who are those trusted friends, teachers, and family members that you can turn to and admit you need help because you're in a little bit of a funk. I have an idea as to how long it should take to complete this challenge. Justin, how long do you think it should take?
Let me know if you agree with this, Murray. I say Friday. Say it's Tuesday right now, solid 3 days. You know what I mean? While it's still fresh on, that could be the theme of the week this week before it gets to the weekend and everyone wants to go do whatever they do.
I'm going with Justin on that. I think so. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Shania and Durand, is this something you can do by Friday?
I can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, Shania and Durand, I'm going to have you give a round of applause for Marcus and Justin because you're the only ones in the same classroom that we can hear. So you're going to have to make a little noise and whoop it up for those guys. Yep. I knew that they could do it. I knew they could do it. Before we officially say goodbye, I want to note that for faculty members and student representatives, the EduCup Challenge is coming back this year. It's for K through 12 students and encourages them to engage in digital courses that have been co-created with professional sports leagues. That's going to help augment everything that we're doing in a virtual setting and a hybrid setting. And with that, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Shania and Durand, you are fantastic special guests. Enjoy being celebrities at school. Enjoy the rest of your week. I can only imagine how Cleveland is buzzing right now with the NFL draft. I wish I could be there, but I'm glad that we all got a chance to spend time together. Marcus and Justin, you are phenomenal. Thank you for sharing your stories, and thank you all for being with us as we took you through the character playbook on mental resiliency. Have a great day, and please have those conversations with those closest to you. See you next time.
See you guys. Thank you for the time.
See ya. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.